Hello my crafty friends, it's Beverleigh here over at Crafting Chaos, and I'm here with the first in our floral series, which is going to be the rose, and I'm going to get cracking. So here's what we're going to do first. Right, so the very first thing you need to do is to get the stencil. Now, I found this by typing in free stencils. Oops, can't even spell free today. Free stencil gallery, which is here, and then I typed in flowers. Oops, and then you'll see what comes up, and it brings up some flowers, and this was the rose that I chose. There are other stencil flowers there, so we're going to have a look at what we've got. So we're going to first of all save the image as and call it rose stencil, and it's going into my downloads folder, so I'll save that first. So now I know that I've downloaded the stencil. So now back in Brother Scan and Cut Canvas for the downloadable version for Mac users, although I think the interface, apart from maybe some of the menus that pop up that are particular to Mac, like the colours for the pencils and stuff, that's a Mac thing. It's nothing to do with the Canvas software. That's just how we select colours in Mac. Alright, so now I'm going to go on the the tracing icon, which is this one here. Now, somebody helped me out a little bit with this one, because I hadn't realised when I'd been doing the first couple of these that I'd missed one of the settings, and I'll explain in a second when I just locate my stencil. I'm going to say OK, and that will open it in there. Now, notice that this one goes straight to preview the file, and it's tracing the outer edges only. Now, when I've been doing this, I've just gone OK, and it's been quite happily going along like that. But it's been bringing the image in as well, which we don't want. But I'd missed this bit here, paste the image on the drawing area. So if you just uncheck that one, that stops it from doing that. If you did for some reason want it in there, then obviously keep it checked. But otherwise, just say OK. And that will then load on the traced element onto your page. So what I'm going to do first of all is I can see there's a little bit there that was part of the actual title on the page, which was really this bit here. I think it was the Owen com, but I'm not certain, but it doesn't matter. So now I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to group it, and then I'm going to resize. And to resize, I'm going to go on edit, and I'm going to make it about 4.5 inches wide by about 6.5. Well, that'll do, 4.5, so that's proportional. So that's now resized to fit nicely on a 5x7 card when we've finished. So I'm going to make a duplicate of that, which you can do by right clicking and going duplicate. I was so used to using the D key on the online version, and it was messing with my head having to do that I actually on the Mac went on to create my own Control and D to actually have the duplicate, so that I didn't have to keep doing the right click. So that's how you do it. So this one is now on my page, and it's an exact replica of the one that we've just done. So the first thing to do is I'm going to keep this on the page, and I'm going to create an offset, and I want to go outward, and I'm going to try it at that and say OK. Now then, what I'm going to do next is I want this bit and this bit. Hang on, let me just get it to the side. I've actually gone a little bit too big there, so I'm just going to go back a step, and I'm going to do it again. Select it, create an offset, and I'll try a smaller offset. We'll try a 0.12 inch offset. Let me just see if that's still catching. I'm not sure what's happening there. Edit, undo. So what I'm going to do now is, oops, I just want these two here at the top. And I think it's because it's joined onto that one. No, it's not. Edit, undo. So let's just go to the layers. This is where layers helps us. So we want to get on that layer, which is that shape, and we need the one that's underneath it, so that one will be, that's just a few, that's that group, that's that group. So if we ungroup these now, that'll enable us to just select both of those, and I'm just going to remove, not that one, got the wrong one again. I'm going to hide that one so that then I can get to the one underneath, and then I can unhide when I find it again, this one. So now we've got that one done. Then I'm going to click on this big piece here, and I'm going to just hide some of these underneath. So what I'm trying to do is get the most of the image out of the way so that we're left with, let's just try this now, let's try welding. Once we've got that one out of the way, let's just undo, because we're getting the wrong bits here somehow. So what I'm going to do is, once I've got this one out of the way, I'm going to weld. Let's see if it lets us weld. So that's the weld. So now I'm going to create an offset, and this time I'm going to go inward, and I need to go inward by about 0.08, sorry. So it's going to be slightly bigger than the actual base that we've got it on, so it allows us to get right up to where we've drawn, but it's going to be smaller than that one. Now what I also want to do is I want to detach this from here, and then I'm going to deal with the other part in a minute. So I'm just making the leaf part of the stencil for now. So what I'm going to do is, this is the part I'm talking about, I'm ignoring this bit for now. And what I'm going to do is just get a shape that I'm going to use to cut this one off. So I'm just going to rotate so that I can get the angle correct. I'm going to go so that I've got it lined up where I want it to be. I'm going to make it bigger than the rose head, like so. And then I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to process the overlap and then remove the overlap. So what I've actually got now is that part of the stencil, which is for this part here, for the outer part. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to select this one again and make another duplicate. And this time I'm going to try by detaching, because it was this what was causing the problem. I'm going to just rotate. Whoops, just moved it for some reason. I'm just trying to get it where I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to close the shapes window down for a minute, and I'm trying to get in here so that I can actually detach it from that piece. So let's just try to remove the overlap. Oh, wrong way, it must have been on the wrong way. So I need to make sure that this is on top, so I bring it to the front, and again select that one and then remove the overlap, and it's done it again for some reason. Now that was on top. Edit, undo. So this bit we need to be underneath, so we're going to arrange, send to back. Okay, we'll try it once more. Oops. So this is what I did. Select both, remove the overlap, and I think it's because it's selecting something else here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break that apart. So I'm going to just go on, break it apart, or as we would call it, ungroup it. So let's just ungroup that, and then we can just select the bit that we need, that one and this one. Now we just need to see what's on top, so let's just colour the rectangle and we can see where we're headed. We know exactly where the rectangle is then, so I'm just going to give it some colour, and we're going to do that, just give it pink for now so I can see the rectangles on top. And another thing that we can do in our colours, if I can bring this up a bit, is lower the opacity so we can actually see what we're doing through the shape. So I'm going to, And I like this feature because it means you can get right in and see underneath, even though it's on top, what you need. So I'm just going to select the bit, and then I'm going to go and process the overlap and remove the overlap. Edit undo. Okay, if that keeps happening, the only other thing to do is just break it apart, and that will then break all of the bits apart that are there. So there, we've got it now. So I'm going to just delete those, delete that bit, which is the other bit now. That's the bit from it. So I'll just delete that, and then I'm just going to give that a 0.4 outward offset, which will be, there's always a way around things if it's not playing well. And now I've gone inward instead of outward there. So that I want it to have the same offset as this one. Remember, we took it 0.12 out and then came back in by 0.8. So this one just needs to be offset outward by 0.04. And then that will be the same distance allowance around as what we've got for the leaf. So again, I'm just going to put that there. So the only thing we need to do now, you can delete that one and this one, is the actual flower itself. So again, I'm going to make another duplicate. So I'm just going to move that across, and I can first of all ungroup, because we can get rid of this, and we're going to again bring in a shape that we can use to cut. So we're just going to bring on a basic square, just size it down a little bit, give it a bit of colour by clicking on the paintbrush icon and then selecting a colour for it. So select, oops, it's got it selected, that's what the problem is. So it is a little bit finicky until you get used to the controls. I'm just still like getting used to it myself, because I only downloaded it at Christmas and I haven't had a lot of time to play. But again, now I'm just going to click on everything, and I'm going to go on this one and break everything apart, click off, and then I'm going to remove the parts that I don't want. Just going to delete them till I'm just left with the rows, which I'm nearly there now. And it's a little bit finicky, but it's worth it in the end. And remember, once you've done this, you don't ever have to do it again. So now I'm just going to weld everything, select everything. You can't weld because nothing's touching, so I'm going to select everything, and group it first of all. So group. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make an outward by 0.012, say OK. And then I'm going to weld everything together by selecting everything and welding. That gives us the basic. And then I'm going to come back in by 0.08. So now it's just 0.04 inches bigger than the original rows, like so. You see, it's just ever so slightly bigger, so that will allow for you to get that watercolouring look to it. So now the next thing to do is I'm just going to move the things off for our plain stencil to one side for 1 minute, and I'm going to work on this one. So the next thing to do, so this would effectively be your drawing file. So in a minute I'm going to make it a drawing file. So I'm going to make another duplicate of it. So you remember, duplicate is right click and duplicate, or you can go on layer and duplicate. This one now, it's all grouped together, and I'm going to make it a draw line, and I'm also going to increase the point by 1 so that you can see it's a nice thick one. And to get that effect in your scan and cut, all you'd do is go into the settings for drawing and choose an extra line, and then it'll go around everything twice. So now that we've got this one, we want this one to be a stencil too. So what I'm going to do is bring on a basic shape, and I'm going a square, and I'm going to make it 5 inches, and I'm going to uncheck the maintain aspect ratio, and I'm going to make it 5 by 7. So it's a nice 5 by 7 what do they call them, stencil. I'll get there in the end. So I'm just going to arrange that so that it's central and in the middle, so that there's some distance right round the shape. And I'm going to first of all make sure that that one is to the back, centre back. Then I'm going to select that one, making sure it's on top. Select both of those, process the overlap and subtract. Now that's effectively created your detail stencil. So you've got a detail stencil and a plain stencil, which means you can just do a stenciled flower. So I'm just going to flood that with some colour so you can see that it is actually the stencil. So I'm going to click on the paintbrush, select that, and I'm going to make it, I don't know what colour to make, we'll make it a goldy colour. So, and we'll take the opacity down a bit, I think, because it's a bit too much in your face, that. So there's the layering stencil. So here we have the draw file. This is a cutting file. Now all we need to do is I'm just going to use this drawing file now to position where I want these layering stencils to be. So I'm just going to bring them in roughly, and then just by eye I'm going to click on that back one that we've just brought in, and I'm going to use my arrow keys until I've got it positioned just where I want it. I'm just going to click off, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, so just a slight little bit zoomed in, and go back on the selection tool. And I think it might be easier for us if I gave them a colour. So I'm going to make them green, the leaf, and I'm going to lower the opacity so we can see, and then we can see when we've got the bit where we want it to be. Then when I've done that one, I'm just going to close that down by hitting this thing here. I'm going to close my colours down because they're getting in the way too. I'm going to bring in now the stem, position this, and again I'm just going to give it some colour. So again I'll make it green and lower the opacity so we can see what we're doing. Just get it into the position that I want, and then finally, just going to close that again. I'm going to bring in the rose, and this little dimple thing here helps us to line it up, which is quite good. So we're going to get, again, we'll give it a colour. We'll make this one yellow, and again, just going to let the opacity down. And again, I'm just going to use my arrow keys to position it. It needs to come up a little bit. And I'm happy with the position of my leaves and that now. So I'm going to select each of those, and I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to move them out of the way. So now I've got those groups. Now I'm going to just ungroup a little for a minute, because what I can see is going to be an issue is this part here is just a tiniest bit too big for what I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the size just a tiny bit, because when we get it on, it's actually touching the other one, so it's not going to cut well. So what I need to do is just take a small amount off this top bit. I'm just rotating my square and popping it over the top, just taking a sliver off the top. I'm going to hit that one, go on edit and remove the overlap, and that's cut a small amount off that tip of the, and I'm going to just rotate once more. I'm going to do the same here, and I want to try and get the angle similar, so I'm just adjusting my square, and then I can just overlap it, select the square and the stem and remove the overlap, and then I can delete the square. Let's just try that in position once more. So we'll just group these two pieces because we know that they're right to each other, and I'm going to position those roughly over. I'll just get back to doing it more carefully in a second. So I'm just going to just adjust them, nothing fancy, just with the arrow keys, until I'm happy with their position on the screen. And then I'm going to reposition these, and what I don't want it to be doing is touching the other one. So now I'm just going to, so I think we're more or less okay there. Okay, so now I'm going to select that and that one, and I'm going to move it to the side, and I'm going to group. Now, so that will form, I'll just close that down and close the colours down now because we've got the position. So now we've got the detail stencil part, the drawing file. So all that we need to do now is put a box just around this one and punch it out for this stencil. So again, bringing on a square. Oops, just brought the one on. We need it to be 5 inches by 7, so it matches the other one. And then I'm going to position it over my not detailed stencil, it's the centre and middle, and then checking that that one's on top, and it's not at the minute the square is, so I'm going to arrange and send that to the back. Then I'm going to check that that now is on top, and then I'm going to remove the overlap, process the overlap and subtract, and now we've got that stencil. So I'm going to just click off again to give that some colour so you can see what we've got. Now I'll take the opacity down so it's not so much in your face. Alright, so I'm just going to close that down. So now what we've got are the 3 parts to the file that we need to create the flower. So we've got, let me just zoom in, not out I mean, so we can see everything. So we've got the non-detailed stencil, which is a cut file, the detailed stencil, which is a cut file, and the drawing part of it, which is a drawing file. So you draw that on your paper. So what I did when I made my card, first of all I did a wash with some marker powders just to give the card a bit of a glimmer. Then I dried it thoroughly with my heat tool and made sure it was really stuck down to my mat, and I used a Sharpie brown to draw the flower, and then I got it out, and then I just cut the sentiment out, and then I used my stencils to help me paint to get the light and shade and where it was meant to be. What you could do is just stencil through it and do it that way if you wish, but that's entirely your choice. But that's how I made the file. So then I'm going to move these down to the bottoms, and I'm going to show you how I did the sentiment. So for the sentiment, I'm going to go on the text, and I'm going to choose the one that I used was called, oh now let me think, it was something like hamster something, or just hamster. Let me just see if I can find it. It's a really small brush font, and it is called hamster, and it was a free for personal use over on the font. So I just went over to the font, looked for brush script, one that I liked, and I quite like this one, and then I typed my greeting, you make me smile, like so, and then that brought it in at that size. And I think all I did was just resized it slightly, and I think I took it in a little bit. I didn't mess too much with the height because I wanted to keep the height pretty much as it is, and until it would fit on my page. And I'm just going to just slightly, so that's where we're up to. So when I was happy that that would fit on a 5x7 card, because what I actually did was cut it several times and then stacked it up on top of each other, and then used ultra thick embossing powder, a couple of coats of that to make it really glossy and thick, and it does look really effective in the flesh. Now if I zoom in again to this, for it's flooded with colour, I'm just wanting to go where the fonts are, you can see that this is not welded together. So if you try to cut that, it's going to cut all your letters individual. Now I know that's the case because the first time I cut it, that's what I did, and there were no way did I want to stick all the letters individually. I didn't mind doing the odd one for the Y, but then the rest of it seemed it had been very, very tedious to do it the way. So all you need to do is just click on the words that you've got, go onto the edit menu and weld, and you can see, I'll just undo that, and you can, if you watch very closely on the screen now, you'll see it actually removes these where it's cutting the letters. So I'll do it once more, weld, and they all disappear. So when we make that a nice colour now, say, just make it blue for now for argument's sake, again knock back the opacity a bit so you can see, that will now cut as individual words, if you will, rather than individual letters. So that's what I did. So that's the only thing. Is so much easier now to make fonts and greetings. And if you wanted to make 2 of those, you could make a duplicate and make one of them a dedicated drawing file, so you don't have to mess about on the scan and cut. You know, you've got a drawing file and a cutting file, so that when you've got them over, you've got choices. Okay, so yeah, that's where we're up to. What you could do if you wanted, and if you might want to just do that file but cut out but left in your cardstock, what you could do is do a duplicate of that one as well that I've got of the drawing, and make that a cutting file. So you've got 2 of those. You could always go into Canvas and re-edit it and do that, but then what I'm saying you've got now is the opportunity to put your card, your full card, blank on your mat, position it once you've scanned it in, and then you can get it to cut it out, but it'll leave the layer and you can put some layers behind it, so then you've got even more options. So that's the file as is. So you've got your detail stencil, your basic stencil, you've got a cutting file for the rose, a drawing file for the rose, which is, oops, I've just moved part of it, just let's undo that. So that means we've got the facility to draw it, so it's effectively a little bit like a stamp. Now the only thing that I added to mine, because I thought it needed a little bit of something, now you can choose to do this step or not, it's entirely up to you. I wouldn't put it on the cutting file, I would only do this on the drawing file, so that's this one. And it says here drawing, and that's where you can pick your options, and I've picked draw. And I'm just going to use this free path, and all I did was just sketch a line down like so, and then that was it. And it's not difficult, it's just like using your finger as a mouse really, and on your thing, and there you've got it. And then I just went back in and selected them, sorry, the 3 lines that I've just done, made them bigger so you could see the same weight as the rest of the file, and then I just grouped, I just selected everything and grouped everything. So now those lines will be drawn on as the detail for your leaves. So that's the file. I hope you'll enjoy making it. I certainly enjoyed playing with the finished article yesterday. So this is the first of a series of flowers that I'm going to make and show you through. So by the time if you make them all, you should be well versed in a lot of these operations in Canvas. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to seeing you over on my channel. Please like, share and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and I'd love to see anything that you actually make if you do have to go playing with this. I'm sure there are much better watercolourists out there than I am. I'm just learning, but I just love the idea of it. So I'm very, very new to me. It's a very, very new thing for me, but I'm enjoying playing with it, which is why I wanted to give myself some other options, and I thought I could utilise the scan and cut to help us on that, just to give us a few more options, because I appreciate it does take time to build up your stash. I'm not saying that this is a replacement for stamping, not at all. I love stamping. It just means that it gives you a few more options as you're building up your stash and alternative options. So anyway, like I said, if you enjoyed it, please like, share and subscribe. Let your friends know where I am, where to find me. As always, I'll include a free download of the file over on my blog at beverleigh10.blogspot. I have got quite a few followers over there, and it does help if you follow the blog. It does make it more publicised for others, so feel free to join and follow me so that you'll be notified when any new files get put on there. And I'll see you soon. And for the people that are following the lessons, the simpler lessons for Canvas, that are just perhaps new to the software and perhaps will be a little bit intimidated with something like this as a starting point, obviously building the way up to that, there's no reason why a beginner couldn't give it a try. I'm sure if they followed it step by step they would be okay, but the lessons will still be coming for the newer users, and I hope that the newer users are finding them useful. So I look forward to seeing you all soon. It's been lovely spending the Sunday afternoon with you, and I'll see you soon. So bye for now. Happy crafting. Bye.